They took my dock without consent, so I took down their whole marina without mercy. My name is Quinn Mercer, and I had no idea my sanctuary on the lake could be taken from me at gunpoint until it happened at sunrise. 3 years ago, my wife Hannah and I left the noise of the city to buy a quaint lakeside cabin in Crescent Bay. We dreamed of mornings on our private dock, afternoons swimming with our daughter Lily, and evenings under a canopy of stars. The cabin was old and needed work, but the lake, glassy, endless, was perfect. We joined Crescent Bay Marina simply to tie our two small boats and share their fuel pump in winter. No HOA, no community rules, just us and the caretakers. That was before Marina manager Bethany Carter, the so-called Marina HOA president, started drawing boundary lines in the wet sand and telling me the dock belonged to her facility. It was a chilly Monday morning in early March when I first noticed the ropes. Heavy yellow nylon ropes crisscrossed my dock like warning tape. At first, I thought it was someone playing a prank. Then I saw the laminated sign duct taped to one of the posts. The words "Property of Crescent Bay Marina. No private use" were bold and underlined, stamped with some official-looking seal I didn't recognize. I remember blinking at it in disbelief. This can't be real. The dock had come with the property. It was listed on our title deed. The county plat maps confirmed it was within my parcel. I took out my phone and called Bethany Carter. She picked up after 2 rings, sounding chipper like she was already expecting the call. "Oh, Quinn. Yes, I meant to tell you. We've decided to integrate your dock into the Marina Commons. It makes more sense for the layout. Your little thing is an eyesore sticking out like that. But don't worry, you'll still have access. You just need to go through the Marina office to reserve it now." I stood there, knuckles whitening around my phone. "You don't have the right to do that," Bethany sighed. "Well, we voted on it at the last board meeting. As president of the Marina Oversight Committee, I have the authority under Clause 7.3 of the Water Boundary Easement Agreement." "There's no such clause," I snapped. She chuckled. "Well, maybe you should review the updated version. We've had to make some adjustments to accommodate the growth around here." That's when it hit me. This wasn't incompetence or confusion. This was a land grab, a hostile takeover. And she was bluffing, betting I wouldn't have the stomach to fight. That afternoon, I walked down to the Marina office. It was a modern building, steel and glass, built just last summer. I'd admired it once. Now it looked sterile, cold. A receptionist wouldn't even let me pass the front counter. "The board isn't available for individual disputes," she said flatly, before sliding me a brochure titled Unified Waterfront Vision 2025. By the next morning, my dock was being used by strangers. A large pontoon boat marked Crescent Bay Marina Rental was tied up. I stood on my shoreline and watched a family of tourists unload their fishing gear onto my dock. My wife Hannah was livid. "This is theft," she said, arms crossed. "Quinn, you need to fight this." "I will," I muttered, "but not just yet." I was already digging. I called the county records office, requested the original parcel boundary documents, and printed every archived version of the so-called easement agreement. I combed over them with a highlighter and a magnifying glass, and there it was. Bethany's HOA committee wasn't real. Turns out, Crescent Bay Marina LLC had dissolved 4 years ago. The HOA board Bethany claimed to preside over was just a remnant Facebook group of former slip renters, none of whom had any legal control over property, much less mine. The dock seizure completely illegal. The fake clause invented, and the seals on the signage. A copied template from an expired city permit. It was a charade, and I had the receipts. I didn't sleep much that night. While Hannah tucked Lily into bed, I sat at the kitchen table with blueprints, contracts, and highlighters spread across the surface. A single desk lamp glowed like a lighthouse over a sea of fraud. Every detail pointed to one chilling truth: Bethany wasn't acting alone. The next morning, I headed to the county clerk's office in town. I'd made an appointment with Terrence Ibarra, the county surveyor, a wiry man with crow's feet and a slow drawl that made you lean in close. "I've been seeing a lot of this lately," he said, squinting at the boundary line in my plat map. Bethany's been submitting requests to reclassify shoreline parcels all across Crescent Bay, claims they're under some unified waterfront zoning project backed by the homeowners. But get this, there is no zoning initiative. She's using a revoked business license and old letterhead from a dissolved Marina LLC. She's fabricating jurisdiction. Terrence nodded solemnly. She's trying to consolidate control. I've flagged 3 of her submissions already, but if people don't push back, she gets away with it. That's when I realized how deep it went. This wasn't just about my dock. She was targeting anyone too quiet, too old, too tired to fight back. Lakefront retirees, seasonal renters, even widows one by one. Their docks were being folded into the marina system, as Bethany put it, and most didn't even know it was illegal. I spent the next week collecting stories. Mr. Hanley down the shoreline had lost his ramp last fall. Bethany said it was unsafe and that she'd take care of it if I signed over the maintenance rights. He told me. She ripped it out, replaced it with a shiny new platform, and now rents it out on Airbnb. Carolyn Phelps, a widow 2 doors down, had a boat lift stripped off her property. She said my insurance lapsed and I forfeited my water rights. She whispered through tears. I recorded everything. By the time Friday rolled around, I had over 40 pages of evidence: fake permits, false claims, manipulated maps, even emails from Bethany's supposed legal advisor, who turned out to be her cousin in real estate school. But the last piece was the most damning. It was an internal memo accidentally forwarded to me from a former Marina employee, someone Bethany had fired. It detailed a private waterfront development plan, a pitch to a real estate investment firm out of Denver. Her plan: rebrand Crescent Bay as a high-end water club, convert all private docks into rental slips, and flip marina control into a private equity deal worth millions. Every lie, every stolen dock was just a stepping stone. I decided it was time to go public. That weekend, I posted a video on the Crescent Bay Community Board. No dramatics, just facts. I laid out the documents, showed the forged signatures, the fake zoning maps, and her development plan. I ended with a slow pan of my dock still taped off, still occupied by a rental boat. Within hours, the post exploded. Comments flooded in. She did the same thing to my grandfather's dock last year. We need a class action lawsuit. Enough is enough. This is criminal. Literally. Bethany tried to respond in the comments claiming slander, misinterpretation, a coordinated misinformation campaign. But the more she posted, the worse it got. Screenshots contradicted her. Witnesses spoke up. Even former Marina staff started chiming in with stories of forced evictions and NDA threats. By Monday, local media had picked it up, and Crescent Bay was on fire. By Tuesday morning, there was no more pretending things were under control. Bethany's fake HOA facade had shattered, and the community had seen what was behind the mask. But exposure was only the first battle. We needed to act. It started with coffee in my garage. Carolyn brought donuts. Hanley brought his grandkids' folding chairs. Even Marcus, a reclusive vet who never came to town meetings, showed up with a manila folder full of dock tax receipts from the 80s. I want my fishing spot back, he muttered. We formed an informal alliance: neighbors, former dock owners, and a few local business owners who'd been pushed out by Bethany's HOA like rain. Hannah sat in, too, in civilian clothes, carefully avoiding conflict of interest, though she was clearly there in full support. We called ourselves the Dock Watch. I printed out a board with columns: docks seized, proof collected, witnesses, and legal route. Each person had a story. Each story had paperwork, and every piece added to a picture of one woman's obsession with power, masquerading as community improvement. But here's the part that surprised even me. This wasn't just about docks anymore. People told stories of backyard inspections without notice, pet fines, flags being taken down. Mailboxes moved 6 inches and fined for HOA violations, even though no one could find actual HOA documents filed with the county. Bethany had built a fake government and ruled like a queen. I'm no lawyer, But I do know how permits work, and Bethany had left a paper trail a mile long. After our fifth strategy meeting, we realized something vital: her entire marina operation was technically illegal. The land lease for the marina hadn't been updated in over a decade, and it was conditional on unanimous lakefront community support, which she definitely didn't have anymore. If we could prove Bethany operated without a valid lease or majority support, the county could pull her operational license. And if the marina lost that game over, we filed a petition to revoke her lease with the County Development Board, attached 137 signatures, a compiled dossier of her activities, and photos of damage across Crescent Bay. Hannah made a quiet call to the Department of Natural Resources. The county clerk scheduled a hearing within the week, and that's when Bethany panicked. She tried to beat us to the punch. The night before the hearing, she staged a spectacle, marina lights on full blast, rented DJ boat in the middle of the bay, banners fluttering from the office saying, Crescent HOA Appreciation Night, free wine, fireworks, loud speeches about community unity, except no one came. People had seen behind the curtain. We gathered downshore instead on my property, ironically with coolers, lawn chairs, and our own speaker system. The fireworks reflected in the water while the crowd booed Bethany's voice over the lake speakers. And at the peak of the noise, a deputy walked up to her booth and handed her the official notice of hearing. It was over. The day of the hearing felt like stepping into a courtroom drama, except it took place in a cramped, multi-purpose room at the county administration building, with creaky chairs and a single, humming ceiling fan. I arrived with Hannah, Carolyn, and Marcus in tow. Half of Crescent Bay seemed to be there, spilling into the hallway. Some wore shirts reading, "We are the Bay." Others carried folders and photos. A few had tears in their eyes. Bethany walked in late alone, overdressed, and trying to look composed in a white linen suit that only made her stick out more. Her heels clicked like gunshots on the tile floor, but her confidence cracked the moment the clerk read the opening statement. This hearing is to determine whether the Crescent Bay Marina operation under the management of Bethany Clark is in violation of county shoreline use ordinances, zoning laws, and property rights as established under Ordinance 12B. We went first. I stood up with the folder that had consumed the last month of my life. I didn't need to embellish or perform. The documents, images, and testimonies spoke for themselves. I explained how my dock on my deeded property had been taken, taped off, and monetized without my consent. Then I handed the board a map. This, I said, is what Bethany's marina empire looks like today. These docks I pointed to, over 20, belong to private homeowners. These were seized. Carolyn took the stand next. Her voice cracked as she described being pressured into signing away her rights by threats of liability lawsuits. Marcus, usually a man of few words, ended his short statement with, "She told me my PTSD dog barked too loud for the HOA. I never signed up for any HOA, and my dog saved my life." Every voice added fuel to the fire. When a former Marina employee presented the fake business license and the secret investor emails, the room erupted in whispers. Bethany tried to fight back. She presented a slideshow of planned beautification projects, claimed we were exaggerating, accused me of trespassing and harassment. She even called me a lake radical. But the moment that sealed her fate was when the clerk asked, "Ms. Clark, can you provide the articles of incorporation or bylaws for the HOA you claim to represent?" She froze, then said, "They're in process." Silence. The board deliberated for less than 30 minutes. When they returned, the lead commissioner read from a single page, "The evidence overwhelmingly demonstrates a pattern of unauthorized property control, false documentation, and violations of public trust. Effective immediately. Ms. Bethany Clark's marina operations are suspended pending full legal investigation. Her development plan is revoked. The Crescent Bay shoreline reverts to individual deeded owners until further notice. This board also recommends a formal investigation by the district attorney's office." The crowd burst into quiet applause, not out of celebration, but relief. The next morning, we began taking our lake back. We pulled the yellow tape from my dock. Hanley replaced his ladder. Carolyn hung up her wind chimes again. Bethany's banners were gone by noon. 2 weeks later, a community-led task force formed the Real Crescent Bay Association. No president, no forced fees, no fake fines. Just neighbors, volunteers, real communication. We rebuilt trust one nail, one dockboard at a time. I even got Lily to help repaint the boat launch sign, private property, with public decency. Bethany was eventually charged with multiple counts of fraud and operating a business under false pretenses. The investors pulled out. Her license was revoked statewide. The fake HOA dissolved with her departure. But the scars she left behind, they took longer to heal. Carolyn still double-checks her mail for fake violations. Marcus keeps a lock on his gate even now. And I've become the guy who people call before they sign anything lake-related. It shouldn't have taken so much damage for people to realize that control doesn't equal community. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't a person with power, but one who fakes it, unchecked. We tell stories like this not just to entertain, but to remind. Fake authority thrives in silence. If someone's claiming control over your life, your home, your peace, ask questions, challenge them, look into the paperwork, ask neighbors. And if you've ever faced a fake HOA, an overreaching Karen, or a weaponized neighborhood association, tell your story, because sunlight is the best disinfectant. What do you think? Where's the line between community and control? Share your thoughts and let's talk about it.